All right, guys, I want to walk you through exactly what happened here with the Inflation Reduction Act, and how Kyrsten Sinema is just the perfect epitome of Washington corruption in what she did in the context of this bill. So the Associated Press did some phenomenal reporting here. Got to give credit to Brian Slotowsko. Phenomenal. So the headline is, Sinema took Wall Street money while killing tax on investors. Here are the specifics of it. Senator Kyrsten Sinema, the Arizona Democrat who single-handedly thwarted her party's longtime goal of raising taxes on wealthy investors, received nearly $1 million over the past year from private equity professionals, hedge fund managers, and venture capitalists whose taxes would have increased under the plan. Now, I just want to pause there to impress this upon you. Just reading that, a lot should be going through your head. Like, it should just be siren, like, this is how it works. This is how the sausage is made. It's ugly. It's gross. There is no legitimate reason for hedge funds and venture capitalists and private equity to throw cash at her and then get something in return. Like, that it's so clear that it's corruption that I struggle to wrap my mind around the existence of any human being who would look at that and say, that's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very straightforward. You can't put lipstick on that pig. That's as bad as it gets, right? For years, Democrats have promised to raise taxes on such investors who pay a significantly lower rate on their earnings than ordinary workers. So I've explained to you guys how that works. It's called the carried interest loophole. I think that's what it's called. And the way it works is basically people who work in private equity, instead of paying income tax like everybody else does on the amount of money they make, they get to pay the capital gains rate, which is a lower rate on their income. So for whatever reason, in this one industry, they say, no, you don't have to pay the same taxes that anybody else has to pay when they make income on a salary. It's just a loophole for these already wealthy douchebags to pay less. It's a way in which the system's rigged in their favor. Where was I? But just as they closed in on that goal last week, Sinema forced a series of changes to her party's $740 billion election year spending package, eliminating a proposed carried interest tax increase, that's it, on private equity earnings, while securing a $35 billion exemption that will spare much of the industry from a separate tax increase other huge corporations now have to pay. The bill, with Sinema's alterations intact, was given final approval by Congress on Friday and is expected to be signed by President Joe Biden next week. So it already passed the Senate and the House. Biden's, I think he either already signed it or he's going to sign it. And this is what she demanded in order to get her vote. And she didn't eliminate it, but she tweaked it where there's a giant loophole that you could drive a Mack truck through, effectively. Sinema has long aligned herself with the interests of private equity, hedge funds, and venture capital, helping her net at least $1.5 million in campaign contributions since she was elected to the House a decade ago. But the $983,000 she has collected since last summer more than doubled what the industry donated to her during all of her preceding years in Congress combined, according to an Associated Press review of campaign finance disclosures. So look, we're picking on Kyrsten Sinema here for good reason, because we have the specifics of this one and it just came out, right? But Joe Manchin, same goddamn thing with the fossil fuel industry. Same thing. There's a number of senators, like Menendez, for example, who he did it with pharma. He got a lot of money from pharma. You could argue Joe Biden, he talked about the public option all the time on the campaign trail. You notice he never mentioned the public option anymore. He only wants to expand the Affordable Care Act. Look, expanding the Affordable Care Act is better than nothing, but you said public option. You said it. And he's since dropped it. Why? Because he's taken so much money from the health insurance companies. David Sirota has done phenomenal reporting on this front, where he gives all the dollar figure, exactly where it comes from, how they're giving it to him. This is the way it works, man. This is the way it works. And it's just, it truly is a light bulb moment when you stop and think and you realize, well, hold on. If we just made that one change in politics, overnight, everything would be better. Not that everything would be perfect, but everything would be so much better. In 1907, the Tillman Act was passed. The Tillman Act made it so that corporate spending on federal election candidates was illegal. Corporations cannot spend on politics. that lasted all the way until the 1970s, when the Supreme Court heard a number of cases starting in the late 1970s about money in politics and how that actually equals free speech. You had Buckley versus Vallejo. You had First National Bank of Boston versus First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti. And then you had Citizens United and you had McCutcheon. All of those cases, when you put them together, we basically legalized bribery in this country. And now we're at the point where stuff like this gets reported and a lot of people are like, yeah, that's how it works. Now, I react like that too, but I don't want to. I don't want us to have a thick skin to it where we're just like, yeah, the whole country's fucked. No, I want to look at this and everybody get the proper reaction, which is like, Jesus fucking Christ, we can trace everything perfectly. You took this amount of money from this industry, then you changed the bill to make it more favorable to that industry to let them run out the back door with all the money. That's fucking crazy, man. That's fucking crazy. So I wish I had a positive thing to end this story with, right? But I don't. Like, everybody's gotten so pessimistic and used to this that they just say, yeah, it is what it is. And it really does speak to how broken the system is when, look, the overall bill, and I'll pull it up for you guys now because I'm not trying to be unnuanced in the conversation about this bill. Like, the overall bill is fucking decent, right? But it says so much that even in the context of when we finally get something done about something, we still have to have these conversations about, oh yeah, they're still corrupt, slimy, sleazy, disgusting, grotesque motherfuckers who aren't serving you primarily. They're serving their donors primarily. So anyway, here's the full thing. This is from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. So clean electricity tax credits, $161 billion, air pollution, hazardous materials, transportation and infrastructure, $40 billion, individual clean energy incentives, $37 billion, clean manufacturing tax credits, $37 billion, clean fuel and vehicle tax credits, $36 billion. So that's like, you get a few $1,000. I think it might be as much as $6,000 or $7,000 towards an electric vehicle. You get a tax credit for that if you buy an electric vehicle. I mean, that's good, right? Conservation, rural development, forestry, $35 billion. Building efficiency, electrification, transmission, industrial, DOE grants and loans, $27 billion, $14 billion in other energy and climate spending. Then you have an expansion of Obamacare subsidies, $64 billion. That is helpful. And honestly, my favorite is the 15% corporate minimum tax. That's down here. I think that's the best provision in the whole thing. And then you also have renegotiation of drug prices for certain drugs. Again, the influence of Big Pharma made sure it wasn't every drug, right? But there's negotiation for some drugs. So, I'm surprised that they got anything through at this point, because I thought when Build Back Better died with Manchin and Sinema killing it, they're like, oh, that's it. Like, we're totally donesy. Like, we're not getting anything at all, right? So we got something good, but just understand, I want everybody to understand the details of who did what, right? Like, the influence of the worst senators who are the most corrupt and how we ended up where we are. Because, I mean, it's really not an exaggeration to say if Manchin wasn't as shitty as he is, and if Sinema wasn't as shitty as she was, if you just replace those two with just being semi-decent Democrats, even just make them like Chuck Schumer, who's not good, right? Like, he's not good, but he's just not as bad as Manchin and Schumer. We could have gotten a lot better than this. We probably would have had a bill that also had childcare in it and universal pre-K in it and an extended child tax credit. And that matters, right? That matters a lot. So I just want everybody to understand the way the system works, and that even when you see something that's like, hey, that's good, right? There's always like but by the way, and this is the by the way. And so Kyrsten Sinema is, I mean, I think for stuff like this is one of my hottest takes, but apparently you guys support it. One of my hottest takes is I think we should treat corruption like it's murder. I think that we should really have a law and order approach when it comes to corruption, because this is the sort of stuff that's destroying the country. And this is the reason why we don't already have a thriving social democracy with universal health care, with free college, with unionization across the country, with a higher minimum wage. If we just had money out of politics, that alone would make this country so much. It's like that meme, you know, that meme where you see like the beautiful shining city that's like futuristic. That's what it would look like just if we got money out of politics, because that would free up legislators to actually represent the people a lot more, which is exactly what you saw. What I tell you, Tillman Act, 1907, no corporate spending on politicians. And what happened? Well, FDR came in the 1930s, and during the Great Depression, he got through the New Deal. And that defined a generation, an era, political era in this country, because he was free to actually represent the will of the people, because the corporations and the billionaire money did not hold us back. We got to return to that, man. We have to, or else we're going to keep getting stories like this. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.